Hello, welcome back. Here we are again. This is a panel on the future of the hardbound hymnal. We have with us GIA and OCP and WLP. They also have names. We have Michael Silhavy from GIA Publications, Monica Rada from OCP, and Hommerding from World Library. So we want to talk about the future of the hardbound hymnal and how you publishers go about producing and marketing hymnals. But I want to start first with, let's do kind of a 1 year updating on where mass settings are at. We talked about this at our panel last year at NPM with the publishers. So I'll just give each of you a minute to say what mass settings seem to be gaining traction and at use in the church. So we can just go right down the line. Michael, what is GIA finding?
Yeah, I think, like maybe many of the publishers, we were surprised that some of the old settings, what we call the retrofits, were the ones that are kind of gaining popularity and maintaining. So for GIA, it would be Mass of Creation, Community Mass, Mass of Angels and Saints, German Mass, a lot of those pieces that seem to have been successfully revised after the 2010 missile changes. New masses would be Tony Alonso's Mass of Joy and Peace. So a lot of our success has been with the refitting of old settings.
Thank you. For us, it's been a little bit of a different experience. Early on, we discovered during the first year of implementation that our new settings were really embraced. From the first year until now, our best-selling mass setting has been Mass of Christ the Savior from Dan Schutte. It's very strong, it's very easy to use, very versatile. Followed by Mass of Renewal, which is a little bit more on the contemporary side. Both of them are new settings. Heritage Mass is our revised setting that has been used, and it's on our top 5 as well. But for the most part, out of the top 10 mass settings that we publish, roughly 6 of them are new and 4 are revised ones. So a little bit different experience.
Alan?
Well, a little bit similar experience to GIA. Our heritage settings, the ones that were revised, Steve Jenko, Mass of Redemption, has done very, very well. And even mass settings that go back to the very early post-conciliar days, the 2 settings by Jan Vermulst, People's Mass and Mass for Christian Unity, which Richard Prue revised for us, also have been very, very solid. But among the new settings, it's really been a sign of the real diversity, I think, of the church. Steve Jenko, again, his Mass of Wisdom is what I guess you'd call a mainstream setting. But Ed Bolduck's Mass of St. Anne for contemporary groups and praise and worship genre, that style has been very successful. And the Missa Simplex, which is a chant style, again based on a Gloria Richard Prue wrote, adapted by Father Michael O'Connor into a mass setting, really shows the diversity that parishes are still experiencing.
I wonder whether we would ever have top 2 masses from each publisher become 6 that go into every hymnal, and there'd be others as well, probably 4 other settings, maybe my own work, I'm just kidding, and then we would have sort of 10 settings that everyone knows. But I'm guessing, let's not go there. Lots of complicated questions there on marketing and financing and whatnot.
Prognostication usually gets you in trouble. So,
yeah, I think that's an accurate prediction of how that would work. So, hardbound hymnals. GIA has probably the most hardbound hymnals on the market with Worship 4, Gather 3rd edition, and you also have a revision of Ritual Song coming out.
Right. We also did Lead Me, Guide Me, our hymnal for African American communities, and our Ramos Cantando, and now our 5th hymnal after the 2010 revision will be a revision of the Ritual Song hymnal, which was done largely in response to customer requests, and also gives us the ability to see what's gone on in the past 5 years with the new translation what settings to incorporate, and also to incorporate some of the newer music, certainly written since the 1996 first publication of Ritual Song, but the last 5 years as well.
So Gather 3 is selling like crazy, Worship 4 not so much?
Gather 3 is beating Worship 4, but Worship 4 is doing well, especially among those folks who know and appreciate and value the hymn of the day approach, and also for folks who have weekday celebrations who appreciate so many of the hymns that speak of healing, for instance, or some of those themes that really appear in weekday circumstances. So Gather, bestseller, Worship, yes.
Is it safe to say, Michael, Gather is actually doing better than you expected in comparison to Worship 4?
It's hard to say, but Gather has been doing very well. So maybe the fact that it's been doing so well makes us think that, or maybe we're just delighted it's doing well rather than better than expected. So, but it's doing pretty well for us.
Okay. I'm trying to push them to be really honest and tell us secrets you're not supposed to about, sales numbers, but I'll back off a bit.
Gather is doing better than Worship, yes.
Very good. Monica, tell us about OCP. I don't think of OCP as hardbound hymnals as much as GIA, of course. We all know that. OCP is really strong with the Today's Missal, and that's just in, half the parishes in the country.
More than half.
More than half,
Yeah.
Okay. How is Journey Song doing? Is it selling?
Journey Songs has been selling very well from the day that we released the third edition. Strong sales. We actually have 7 different hymnals that we offer. Journey Songs being one of them. Great seller, very strong. We see a lot of our customers that subscribe to our missal, particularly to an annual missal, that when they are considering a permanent resource, they consider Journey Songs as a choice. We also have Floricanto, which is our best-selling Spanish hymnal. Strong sales. Our last edition is being released about 5 or 6 years ago, and the sales continue to be strong year over year, primarily because of the growth in the Hispanic population. We just released last October Glory and Praise 3, and we have not been disappointed with the sales in the first year of the hymnal. As a matter of fact, this past month we exceeded the expectations, so we know that it's a revision that the customers were waiting for. And similar to what you were saying, Michael, we decided to do another revision of it because of customer input. We heard that they wanted to see a new version.
Glory and Praise has really come a long way, hasn't
Yes.
it? When I look at that very first edition, where it wasn't real clear how this even works in the liturgy, it's just a lot of great songs, and this is, 150 years ago. Glory and Praise now, it's a really well-constructed, comprehensive hymnal with a variety of styles, including classical hymnody.
Yes, and it has 15 titles from GIA as well, so it really makes it very comprehensive for many congregations. Have you had a chance to review it? Do a personal?
Oh, well, not formally. I haven't published a review at the blog, but one of our monks who's in a parish asked me to compare Journey Song and Glory and Praise, so I did. And I believe that parish went with Journey Song.
Really?
So.
Yeah. We also have a contemporary hymnal, which is Spirit and Song. We released a new version about 3 years ago, a little different from the first and second volumes that we published. And what he's taken off is, with the release of the Hardbound hymnals, also the introduction of digital versions of the resource, so that musicians have access to everything that they need to really bring the music to life in the parish.
But that's not hardcover, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is
Oh, yeah.
hardcover. Oh, I missed that.
The first volume and the second one was not a hardcover edition, but the new that we released about 3 years ago is a hardcover hymnal. Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, lots of products from OCP.
Lots of products.
Alan, tell us about One in Faith.
Well, One in Faith is our hardbound hymnal that we put out after the 2010-2011 revision of the English texts. We sat down and debated whether or not to do that hardbound hymnal at all, because most of the products we've put out, even hymnals such as We Celebrate, Hymnario, our Spanish language bilingual hymnal, Voices as One, the contemporary hymnal, all of those are periodic and have updates and revisions and so forth. But we finally said, and I know I'm going to sound like I'm reading off of a marketing cue card, but we, honest to goodness, sat in a meeting and said, we serve the church and we need to serve the church in this way. And we decided that we would do a hymnal that, again, embraced a variety of musical styles between its two covers, and hence One in Faith as the title. We went back and forth between One in Song, One in Faith, and settled on One in Faith.
And it's not obviously in the line of People's Mass Book and all of those various permutations.
Right, and even though part of the discussion was, will this be another revision of People's Mass Book? Because, in 1955, the People's Hymnal was the very first English language vernacular hymnal in the U.S., and that's definitely a heritage we're proud of. But we decided that we needed to indicate that there was something new here.
I want to ask all of you, how are the hardbound hymnals doing as a proportion of the market share? Does it seem like the hardbound hymnal is sort of yesterday's model and it's all diversifying, or is that actually not the case? Is it fairly stable as a proportion of the market? Why don't we start on this end this time?
Well, I think our experience is that it's a pretty stable proportion. We did have some people who were World Library customers who did switch over from a periodic publication, especially from our annual book Word and Song, to the hardbound hymnal. And it's when we told them we were doing the hardbound hymnal, some people said, "Oh, good," because we were looking for one, so we'll wait for a year or so. So I think there's maybe a little bit of shift in the proportion, but in our experience, I think without concrete numbers, I'll venture a guess that it's been largely stable.
Now, would you say that One in Faith has the same market hold as did People's Mass Book? I have the impression that People's Mass Book was a bigger thing in the U.S. church.
Well, it depends at what point in time. It's like something like the 1963 or 64 edition of People's Mass Book was very nearly everywhere. If you move toward the 1984 version, it was much more in localized markets around the country. And then the 2000 revision that we did, again, we found it being more localized. It was, many places around the country, but again, just very, very localized areas. We're seeing a much more even spreading out of One in Faith customers.
Okay. Monica, what's your experience with this Journey song? Does it have the same market share that the previous two editions had?
Yes. As I said, I think that when we released the hymnal, it was after the new translation, and the market was ready. They were ready for really the new version. Our sales have been very strong. We see our customers still keeping, I don't know if this will be surprising for any of you, but we see that our missal customer, actually, many of them may transfer to a hymnal, while others may retain the missal subscription and also purchase a hymnal. We have a vast customer base that has both. And the reason why they have both is because they have the stability of the repertoire of a hymnal, and they also have the flexibility of an annual or a periodical resource that they can introduce new music to their congregation. And if the makeup of the parish changes, they have the ability to add whether it's Spanish or bilingual songs to it. So all in all, we've been very, very happy with the sales of all of our hymnals. We do see a little bit of a tendency similar to what WLP is experiencing of transferring from missiles to more permanent resources. But it has been very slow moving, and it's been good that we've been able to retain the customer when they jump from one resource to the other. They choose an OCP hymnal, so that's a good
mixing
thing.
and matching, and not only within publishers, because I'm sure there are places that have Floricanto plus your missalette, or your hymnal plus your hymnal.
Yes. We track ours, right? We don't know, but there is many. I've been to many parishes that have multiple resources, and usually you see all of the publishers represented. But we know for our own customer base that, I don't know if I'm divulging percentages, but roughly 40% of our customers have both. And it just serves their needs. It serves needs of their church as the congregation, as it changes. And it's just something that we want to continue to provide going forward.
Now, Floricanto, what would you say about its market hold? It's pretty predominant in Hispanic communities. Is that increasing or shifting at all?
Absolutely. Floricanto is the number one choice for Spanish-speaking congregations, and it has been since we released it. The third edition of Floricanto has not, well, let me think about this. It's been widely successful. When we released the third edition, we still saw demand for the second version of the hymnal. So we were selling both of them until now it's out of print, and now we see more of the demand for the third edition. But it has been very steady year over year. Yes.
How do you look at market share at GIA, Michael? You don't have as many of the seasonal things, but you have a wider variety of hardbound hymnals. What's the market hold of them?
Right, I think what's surprising to us is that we still have a good number of our customers with Ritual Song 1 in the pew, with the green Gather Comp in the pew, the maroon Gather Comprehensive 2. So for us, maybe it's not so much getting someone from a missalette to a hymnal, but getting folks to go from an old hymnal to a new hymnal. So I think a lot of our customer base traditionally have been the hymnal type of customer, and so we need to work to get them into the newer hymnals.
I have mixed feelings about all of that, because what does this look like in the parish? So they have two hymnals plus mass settings that aren't in either hymnal. So there are leaflets and handouts all over, and it's on the screen, and it sounds like a little bit of a mess.
I think it'd be interesting if all of us publishers could do a survey of how many times a congregation actually turns to the mass setting in the hymnal. It might be nice those first few weeks it's taught, but and that's why I think people are able to keep these old hymnals. They've used their little pockets in the back, or they've done the worship aid as you walk in the door. I think we're aware that the service music really isn't accessed Sunday to Sunday by people, so I think that's what allows these hymnals to stay in the pew for so long.
Let's switch to hymn text editing and how people treat that. I have the impression, if I were to compare Worship 4 with Journey Song, the texts in Worship 4 are a bit more adventurous, there's more editing, and there are more current texts being put to traditional tunes. OCP's Journey Song is a bit more classic in its treatment of texts. Does that seem like an accurate characterization?
I think so, and once again, that was really the intent of Worship 4, to provide, to really take that hymn of the day concept and play it out to its fullest, and that allowed for more direct, specific, adventurous texts. In the same way, every hymnal is going to go through a lot of text editing, whether it be trying to make sure that we have authentic sources, which isn't always necessary or ideal, but at least you want to know what the original said. We certainly are sensitive to what is found in other hymnals. And yes, when we're doing our Ritual Song, second edition, we're looking to see what's in World Library and OCP, both for ideas, but also for hopefully a shared experience, so Catholics can maybe encounter the same text. And we also look at ecumenical resources also. We're looking at the Evangelical Lutheran Worship book, just to see how we share text. So.
But the classical hymnody from GIA has more recent and contemporary texts than anyone, and I have mixed feelings about that. I love the lectionary tie-ins, but I'm not sure that everything in the last 15 years has risen, to the level that we want. Maybe I'm spoiled because we monks use the hymnal 1982, and it's so classic. But it's a decision you made.
Sure.
We try to certainly strike a balance and stay true to the hymn text. We work with scholars who help us, and we do a lot of research. So we're very careful in any changes or adaptations that we make. And I think, as you said, that shows perhaps more of the traditional.
Yeah, it does. Alan, the way I've laid it out, how does World Library place itself? And I realize we're talking to someone who's a hymn text writer himself.
Right, so it's, I'm not sure if you want the hymn text author or the editor to answer. Yes, well, and it's interesting to take a long view. We are, still in what is being termed the hymn explosion that came about with the implementation of the Paul VI lectionary in the Roman Rite and the Revised Common Lectionary in the Protestant churches. So there's still a lot of that text writing going on. We're now finding some authors turning more toward the propers of the Roman Rite, especially the entrance antiphons and the communion antiphons. Entrance antiphons particularly in terms of new hymn texts. So, there's really nothing in the documents that says everything needs to be by the 3 or 4 pericopes from the lectionary or only the gospel. So we've really tried with new texts and kind of recovering old texts to take a look at the broader ecology of the whole rite, including the antiphons and other seasonal treasures we have from the tradition.
Yeah, interesting. Switching to another topic, I want to make an observation and ask what you think of it. It seems like the hardbound hymnals from the publishers have sort of converged in their layouts and in the way that you have psalmody, you have office, you have mass settings, you have hymnody, and there's a certain consistency about it that you would not necessarily have predicted with competitive market forces, but I think that's a good thing. We sort of know what a Catholic hymnal looks like in the United States. How do you folks talk about that? Do you talk about branding and uniqueness?
Well, as Michael mentioned, we look at what everybody's doing. And I honestly was a little frustrated that the new Presbyterian hymnal, Glory to God, came out after we had done One in Faith, because I was leafing through it saying, a little bit. But sure, when we were doing One in Faith, we had journey songs open, we had gather and worship open, and looking at layout, looking at typefaces, all of that sort of thing is like, do we indent lines of the psalmody and all of this? Yeah, we take a look, and and I think it's probably that reason that sort of a consensus has really emerged in what a Catholic hymnal looks like and how it's laid out.
Anything to add to that?
No, I think it's a respectful, honest sharing. I don't think people feel that ideas are stolen. If anything, would be honored, with imitation being the highest form of flattery, as they say. But I think it's fair to say we all look at each other's ideas, and I think that helps the user in the pew, especially if they go from parish to parish. That's a nice way to put it. There's an expectation of what a Catholic hymnal looks like, so that's a good thing.
I want to switch to another topic that I'm curious about. Some hymnals have a pocket at the back where you can add a supplement to it. You sell pockets that you can add to the hymnal. You publish several supplements for people who want more contemporary or more chant or more, traditional devotional or whatever. How does that work? Do a lot of people really like that? And does that make your hardbound hymnal a living product where the repertoire can be replenished? Or is that not as much a part of your approach?
Well, since several years ago you asked me to speak on this topic on the hardbound hymnal at Collegeville, so I did a fair amount of looking into this, and it's such a common part of our lives that we don't think of the book as a technology, but it is. And what you're seeing is with something as simple as those pockets that we're all putting in the back is an upgrade or an updating of the technology to accommodate the users. If it's, if the parish music director is writing music and wrote a mass for the parish and wants that there, or wants 2 or 3 titles that were in the previous edition of the hymnal but aren't in this one, it's an adaptation of the technology to the way it's used.
And we certainly sell pockets, and I have a pocket in my hymnal in the parish. But I'm also of the mindset as a pastoral musician, we have Gather 3 in our pew, and I've got 1,000 pieces of music to choose from. And that seems to be a pretty generous amount. And I could do fine without my pocket, but there are times when we do want to insert special pieces. But they're a nice luxury to have, but by no means necessary.
We find out that it's important to have the pocket to allow customers the flexibility to customize the hymnal as they choose, especially when the change of the text happened with the new translation. We saw many of our customers not quite ready to purchase a new hardbound hymnal, and being able to use the pocket with the new updated mass settings and all of that. So it allowed them the opportunity to keep the existing resource a little longer until we come out with another edition to replace it with. So it's more for those, the ability for them to customize and add repertoire, to the many hundreds of songs that they already have, but for those occasions that they may need it. So it is something that we see as value and our customers appreciate.
Any surprises in which of your supplements have really taken off?
The one that really took off, no surprise, was our mass setting supplement with the change of the text. We saw, so many of them. We had to actually go back and print more because we ran out. We've been selling steadily a lot of the Latin supplement that we have. And surprisingly, the Spanish supplement that we created years ago when we released Journey songs didn't sell as much. And what that told us was that when parishes are ready to start having a Spanish mass, that little insert is not enough to have enough songs to welcome the community. So they will want to have either a fully bilingual resource or a hymnal like Floricanto.
Very interesting. Last question. So who's the best publisher of hymnals? Any thoughts? No, I'm kidding.
God.
Yeah, there you go. Very good. Well, thank you to all of you for this very interesting conversation on the hardbound hymnal. Thanks, Michael and Monica and Alan.
Thank you.